Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. Today I'm chatting with director Daniel Holmes and producer Matthew Homan, whose film Street Leagues tells the inspiring story of the Irish homeless street football leagues. Okay, well, first up, thank you guys for chatting with us.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
With all this madness that's after happening across the world. So Street Leagues is hitting cinemas on the September the 25th.
Yep.
That will be cinemas all around Ireland. Are you going to, at the moment, cinemas in Dublin are on lockdown, and you were saying it will open up in October?
So basically now what we have to do is just wait on another slot. So we're just hoping that we can get a date. We have to wait on the government to see what happens there. And then we have to then, it's like flying off on the airlines, on the runway. You just have to see when your next slot is. And whenever we get in, we're ready to go. We've got all the marketing, we've got all the posters, we've got the DCPs, the cinemas have them. So we're ready to go whenever they are. So we're just really excited that we'll have 2 runs,
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the Street Leagues.
Carly Hamilton came to me, and I'd done a bit of work with Carly before, and she says, Matthew, I've got this, I'm working with this organisation and I think there's a documentary in it. She was very passionate about making a documentary. Carly's an executive producer on Street Leagues. So she came and was like, look, I said, Carly, I've just come off something where we've been self-funded, so we need to get funding for this. She said, come and meet me anyway. So I met with her, I had a chat with her, and I was like, right, okay, this sounds nice. And then she said, come and meet the board. So I think that was a Saturday. The Tuesday night we ended up meeting the board, and I had a chat with them. Or the Tuesday afternoon I met a couple of them. It was Sean Kavanagh and Frances, his sister, and they started telling me more stories, and I was like, okay, right, this is amazing. I can't believe I hadn't heard of this before. So I was working on a project at that minute, so I was able to say to a cameraman and a videographer, come down to Street Leagues with me on Saturday and we'll film a sizzle reel. And whenever I seen how much the filmmaker or the players actually were opening up and being honest, I couldn't believe that this was even happening to them, that their past had happened to them. And then 2, I couldn't believe that they had turned their whole lives around, and all because of football. So I interviewed Sean Kavanagh then, and I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. How have I not heard of this? So he was saying that not many people had. So my main focus at that point was I want to raise as much awareness for this organisation as possible. I was thinking about a documentary because that was how I was able to do that as a documentary filmmaker, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And I still hadn't got a director at that point. I went through filming some stuff, and then I'd worked with Daniel before on a previous project, and I sort of brought him along to one of the nights just to see how he felt. I didn't really offer him the job straight away, and with his reaction, I was like, it just fits. This works. So that was it then. Then Daniel, you came on at that point, and
yeah. So I moved to Dublin in July of 2017. And about a week later is that day that Matthew asked me to just shoot some footage at one of the nights, and didn't really know anything about the Homeless World Cup, didn't know anything about what the Street Leagues did. I was basically, and I found out later, Matthew was kind of testing me to see what my reaction would be like, to make sure that I would have the same passion that he did when he found out about it. So immediately I was like, swept up by the energy of what was happening, chatting to some other players and kind of getting a feel for their stories. And literally about a week and a half after that, I was on a flight to Oslo to shoot the experience in the Homeless World Cup. And it came together really, really quickly. And there were a few, it came together by a thread in the end. There were a lot of things that kind of had to fall in place at the last minute. And but it all worked out.
It's fabulous, and it's very, very beautiful and inspiring. Like, you get this gorgeous arc of these characters that have really kind of seen a lot, dealt with a lot, and you see the positive healing power of sport, especially at a time like this. I think it's a lovely thing for people to get to see, and so people don't forget that healing power of sport and community and friendship and connectivity and the importance of it in, again, a time like this.
I think whenever, whenever you're a child, and you're in school, or whether you're into sports or you're not, you might be into something, maybe rounders or football or, Gaelic or whatever it may be, there is that connectivity, you know, and whenever you're a child, there's no real classes, you know, whenever you're on the football pitch, you're good or you're not, you're different levels, and it didn't matter whether how much money you had, where your parents came from, what was going on, you had like on the pitch, you were literally, you know, defending or scoring a goal or whatever that may be. And I think this really works for people that are going through addictions and maybe at different stages of their lives, living on the streets, or whenever they get onto the pitch, they've actually got purpose. Do you know what I mean? They're there for a reason and they're valued. You know, you can't do without them because you need that person. And I think there's a lot of people that have, whenever they enter into street leagues, that they hadn't actually felt like that for a while. You know, and I think that is something that I really noticed that people were getting from it whenever they talked about it. It was a real community, and like even after it, I witnessed it, you know, the girls leaving and saying, "Hey, we're going to go to an AA class," you know, and or an AA meeting, and they went together, and just, you know, it was just, we're with, like, you know, it was nice. Everybody, they felt the same, you know. But coming through as children, I just think there's so much. Sports is a real language of its own.
Yeah, and you see that as well. I think, especially if you kind of get into negative patterns, it's very easy to, you know, lose confidence in yourself and your ability. And again, it's about like fostering that confidence in other people and going like, look what you can achieve, and showing people, like, I mean, representing Ireland, you know, like, and you see the pride on these people's faces who've achieved so much, and who's like, you know, whose athletic ability would surpass most of the countries. Like, it's, and you see that pride there, and that self-worth just means so much to people. Like, it's very moving to watch. Anyway, but I don't want to kind of give too much away. Like, it's part of it is about kind of going through the journey of these people there. But what was your experience as filmmakers watching that? Because a lot of people are talking about things that are very, very personal. And I suppose as documentary filmmakers, you have to go, okay, are we doing a service to the people by sharing their story and letting other people hear it? But then also, how do I phrase this in a way? But yeah, like, as you kind of want to give people the voice to speak, but then sometimes things might be too personal, or, you know, it might hurt the people. How do you find that line as documentary? Or did you have to find that line, or were people just happy speaking about their feelings?
I'll just take the first part of that, and Daniel can take the second. Is, you know, with Sean, you know, at the start, I said to Sean, you know, you have final sign off. I said, I don't want to put any of these people in a worse off position by exposing like their lives and like putting them on the big screen and putting them out there. I said, so you have the final sign off, and I give him that right from the start. I said, like, there's no question about it whatsoever. And there was a couple of things in there that he said, do you want to know what, maybe we shouldn't, it doesn't add to the story. And we're like, yeah, you're right, this was before it wasn't taken out of the movie, it was before what we would even put into it. But I was really shocked about how open the people were. And Daniel, I'm sure, will contest to this as well. Whenever he went to the Homeless World Cup and went over to see went over there with them, he was actually there, you know, shooting the stuff by himself and flying through everything there. So he was almost taken by one of their own. So whenever they were doing the interviews, you know, there was no crew there was no producer there. So they were in a different position, you know. What was it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like Matthew said, I mean, I was basically a one person crew out there. So what we lacked in kind of having a lot of, you know, luxuries production wise, we gained in me just being able to develop a bond with the players very quickly that gave them the trust in me to open up as much as they did. And, you know, certain players were more forthcoming than others, you know, and I completely respected that. And there were a few players who didn't really want to divulge much about their past because they had children, they had family members that this might affect as well. So I completely respected that. But I think the players who really did open up did so on the understanding that they might inspire somebody else who kind of saw what they had gone through. You know, I think that was the reasoning behind that. You know what I mean? They knew that by sharing their story, you know, it gets passed on to somebody else who's maybe facing these challenges or any challenges. I mean, like you said, like, we're all kind of facing, you know, this far into 2020. I think everybody has challenges that they didn't expect to be facing entering this year. And, you know, this is obviously the film is a very extreme journey, you know, from where these players were to where they are now. But I think anybody facing challenges could gain something from watching this and just seeing, you know, how far you can go once you develop some belief in yourself.
But even at that, so just to put into perspective, so Tara lived on the streets for 20 years, you know, and she turned her whole life around. Then she ended up going to the World Cup and standing in the national anthem, and that's probably one of the girls that you've seen like really emotional, you know. Then she goes out, she comes back, or she goes to do all that whirlwind. She ends up on the Late Late Show. Do you know what I mean? She done the Late Late Show, you know.
Did an amazing job.
And an amazing job, and has done. She done Today FM or with the Dermot and Dave show. Like, I mean, the people in the documentary can prove that you can do anything. Like, Tara's actually a grandmother. Do you know what I mean? She's now a grandmother now, and you know, this is a pure inspiration story that you can do anything. You know, I currently don't drink either, and like they inspired me to like say, geez, you can do anything. If these guys can come through the crap and stuff that they faced and to turn it around and stick on the straight and narrow, like, and that's what we really want to show, like, for people that are out there that are, you know, that are maybe in the same position, just, you know, go to one of these organizations and just put your head down and you know, take the support that's there, because, and like, I know it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy to sort of just step in and do that, but using people like Tara and Tucker, who was actually in prison, came out of prison, ended up going to the Homeless World Cup, came back, started training the female team, went back on the year that we were there, and is now working as a prison guard.
Yeah, just got a degree.
Just got a degree as well. Do you know, so like I feel it's really inspirational for anybody who's going through anything right now, and you know, I just want them to see it. I want everybody to see it.
Coming into the winter, and you can see it after being on lockdown for 6 months so far, and you can see things have just been taking a toll, that the negative, like the way the economy is kind of, so many people are left jobless, that just watching again something like this just shows that there's hope for things, and that, you know, like football leagues are still happening locally, like this way to connect, even in a socially distant way, will still be available, and it's so important, and it's so important for the government to fund projects like that. And it's like, I mean, if you look at like a lifetime of trauma, you know, you only start to heal when you know, start to feel that you're able to heal, and then, you know, that you're doing things for other people as much as yourself, and you're important. Like, it's such an important lesson for people, and I do think this you did a great job in documenting these people gaining that level of self-worth, which I don't know, I think it's very timely, and it's very important.
And it's almost like, as you said, timely and timeless, you know, for where we're going into. It is like, I mean, the people that are, I just feel that it's so uncertain what the future is right now. And I think people like Sean Kavanagh need to be like celebrated, and there's so many more of them, do you know what I mean, that are out there, and you just want, like, just even for him to sort of be encouraged to do more for people, because he can. I personally want to do more. I'm involved in various different things, and I want to even do more. Do you know what I mean? So, and again, we like, whenever this cinema run finishes, you know, I still want to do stuff with Street Leagues. Like, we're donating all the money from the cinema run to the organisation, and like, we want to just do as much as we can, you know.
And upon saying that as well, it's a very polished piece of work. It's stunning. There's beautiful drone shots. When you said you were like a one-man operation,
that's
there was very
encouraging to hear, because you know, there's a few shots in it that I'm not particularly proud of. Just the nature of you know, trying to operate 2 cameras and sprinting from, you know, the side of the pitch and stuff. You know, it was, yeah, it took a few days to kind of figure out how to actually shoot the footage. And there were so many times where, you know, I just had no idea if I got everything I needed. You're just kind of pointing the camera and just hoping for the best and just trying to follow the ball. And I'd be so elated in the editing room when it would all come together, you know. But I appreciate that a lot, to be honest.
That's the thing with documentary. You never know if you've got it. You're like, is this, you know you've got a good story because of what the people have said to you, but you're like, okay, what is it? Because you are piecing it together, and it's almost the direction is done in the edit, you know.
Yeah. No, actually, that's actually another one of the questions that I like. How long did that editing process take?
Well, funnily enough, I mean, the editing process took, once I found the rhythm of it, it came together extremely quickly. It took a very long time to find the rhythm. It took a lot of trial and error, because there was always a balance to find between, you know, the story of the journey in the Homeless World Cup. Because this is the thing too, even though we wanted the film to resonate with people who, you know, aren't necessarily big football fans, we still wanted that part of the story to be engaging, and for those games to have some stakes, and for you to be invested in how they did, and because there is a high level of competition, and we'd be doing the players a disservice by not really emphasizing that part of it, because of how hard they had to work to get those skills to be in that position to play in the Homeless World Cup on the world stage. So, it was a tricky balance between making that part of the story engaging, and as well, getting across the individual stories of the players, and as well making sure that we're not looking back too much, you know what I mean? Because it's a story we kind of pick up with the players when they're pretty much about to leave for the Homeless World Cup. You know what I mean? There's not really a whole lot of footage of kind of seeing, what life was like before this journey. And so a lot of that is kind of covered through their monologues and through them opening up to us. And, we didn't want to kind of stay there too much. The film is about looking forward and about making progress. And, but as well, we need to be aware of just how far they've come, and for that contrast to be apparent.
And actually, I want to go back a little bit and just talk about the trajectory of this. So you said you shot a sizzle reel to essentially get this made first. Was that to attract funding, or was that to pitch it? Like, actually, just out of curiosity, how does this go from a suggestion in the producer's suggestion box to, then a pitch to then in pre-production?
Yeah, I shot the sizzle reel on a Saturday and got it edited on the Monday or Tuesday and had it pretty quick, and it was really, really nice. I wasn't graded or anything, and I reached out to a producer I knew in RTE, and I said, look, what do you think? And he said, we kind of done something similar a few years ago, and then I reached out to the film board. They were like, yeah, well, let's put it through one of the rounds, and I was like, we don't really have time, the same thing. I'm so impatient as a producer, and I just want to get stuff done, especially when it's documentary. We owned all the equipment. I had all the people working for me at the time. It was like, I can just get in and start this anyway, so let me just get to the next step. Let me just see what I needed. And
as well, it has a linear arc, so you're not going to have to shoot for 10 years or anything like that. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end from the get-go, which is an easier sell mentally.
Yeah. I didn't even know where we were. I didn't even know if we were at the beginning whenever I started. I was just like, get cameras on. So basically, I was constantly trying to get funding because we needed funding to do it. Bankhouse has paid for the majority of it and paid for the cinema release. We've done it self-funded ourselves. Anil, an executive producer on it as well, ended up putting in some money too. Sean from Street Leagues had helped support as well whenever we were like, we don't have any money right now to get to the next stage, whether that was a flight or whatever that may be. Then he jumped in at that point. And then by the time, because it was progressively going over a couple of years, my business was doing better. So I was in a much better position to say, okay. And even making the decision to go for a cinema release, it was very easy to say yes, because, the company has moved on so much. But at the start, we were going from are we going to even get this done? I didn't even know why I was shooting it, because I was thinking we're not going to get the money for this. But I just felt that it was right, and I'm glad that we kept moving forward. And that's one thing that I once said to anybody who's documentary filmmaking: just turn on the camera, do you know what I mean? And just start recording. It could be B-roll, it could be anything at all. And it doesn't cost anything to put one person there on the camera. If you chew yourself, we shot most of this on a C300, and I had that myself. So I would just advise anybody to just turn on cameras and just see, because I'm just glad I did. Imagine if I didn't. There's interviews that we done in the sizzle reel that are in the final documentary, because it wasn't until we shot that I was just like, wow, this is magic,
There's lovely, it's structured in such a way that there is that lovely arc as well. You've that positive upswing, but then you take it back to that kind of nice personal positivity. Were there any changes in the edit? Was there any things that you had to maybe drop for whatever reason, or that you decided last minute to shuffle around?
Not really. I mean, it was a very kind of strange edit, because like I said, there was a lot of trial and error just trying to find the overall structure. And then I basically just kind of locked myself in the editing room for a week and just edited like a madman. And the cut that came out of that week, it's pretty much 90% the final cut.
Yeah, we went back and shot some stuff. I would love to go back and look at some of the other people that were in the documentary, because there was so many more success stories. Like one of the girls went on, she has a baby now, and like there's things that have actually happened and continue to happen and will continue to happen through all of their lives, that we just can't obviously document forever. But I would have loved one more pass on another round of where everybody is at now.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I would love. And do you want to know what? We've talked about doing it. We've talked about just because I believe it would take one day of interviewing in Dublin. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it could really, even just a little bit that could come on maybe at the end after credits roll, maybe for something if we get to the next stage of distribution, maybe TV, maybe streaming. So we might go back and just do like one more little 3-minute blast of like maybe just a roundup of them. I would love to do that.
Yeah, it's a testament to the players, like just how much has happened since we finished the film. You know what I mean? Like Matthew said, there's just so much room to cover even more ground for all of their successes off the field. Like it's amazing how much more we could do now to pass this past
past week.
Crazy.
Even the past week, if we done like the Dermot and Dave show, the 2FM show, the Rand
getting his degree,
the Rand Tuberty show, like this, even with where they're featuring, like this is a lifetime away from where and it just proves again that by going into like organizations, you can really make a difference in your life.
Yeah.
And just tell me a little bit about Bankhouse Media. So I read online that you guys were doing work for charities and things.
Yeah, so I opened Bankhouse Productions. In the last recession, I was a victim of the last recession and lost my property business and my job and ended up unemployment for 2 years, with not a single penny, which I actually, I'd never been in that position, and I found myself with no money for rent and struggling I've always found money for drink somehow, but I struggled for rent. But and I opened Bankhouse Productions in that time. I worked with an organisation, Inner City Enterprise, and I started the film production company. And as we sort of went on, we'd always been working on movies that we really cared about and how we could add value. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to do, because it felt hardship before in my life. And I was like, I want to try to work on projects that give back and try to do as much as possible. I ended up we opened a digital media agency on the side of Bankhouse. So it's Bankhouse Productions for film and documentary and Bankhouse Media for our media agency. Now you can imagine media, we are fully we do everything in digital, and it has been, extremely busy, especially through lockdown. It's probably been our busiest time. So that has done really, really well, allowing us to fund all this other stuff that we care about and that we love. So at the start of lockdown, one of our crazy barber, Annie owns a barber's in Wexford Street. She has a Lato, and he came and said, I want to do something, through this time. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to feed people. And I said, okay, no worries. So what does this mean? So we literally started going from shop to shop on Camden Street and saying, can I have food? And was giving it to people that needed it. So I said, God, you're crazy. So we then built the brand Ready Donate. We've done over 5,000 meals since March. We're now getting food coming from Lidl and Tesco and Aldi at the end of every day, and this food parcel is going out non-stop. We've now, fingers crossed, hopefully we'll know by Friday, we've secured a premises in Dublin city centre for putting in fridges, for boxing up food, for doing all that stuff. And we believe that Ready Donate could actually go into every city, if not every town in the country, because there's so much food gets thrown out and wasted at the end of every single day in a shop, in a supermarket, and they don't actually want to throw it out. That's the thing. They don't want to, and they're ready to donate it. And we've been taking it and we've been giving it out. We've been working with Food Cloud, which is an amazing organisation. It's one of the best things that I've ever seen. They're unbelievable. And we're just getting it out as much as possible, so we're constantly wanting to give back. So that's it.
It's interesting as well. I mean, this project, doing Street Leaks, has really kind of altered the trajectory of the kind of projects, the kind of film projects we want to make, and also projects like that with Ready Donate, like Matthew was talking about, things, once you kind of see what a difference you can make with very little resources a lot of the time, like it motivates you to continue that and try to find other ways to help, and I think that's one of the things that I really hope this film accomplishes, is that it shows people that solutions do exist and they can be a lot simpler than you would think. And, if you see the amount of if you see that it's possible, if you're aware that it's possible to make change, it just makes you a lot more motivated to attempt it.
Of course. And actually, just to ask you yourself, Daniel, about your own career, you've done a lot of work with drama prior to this, haven't you? Like your background would be a lot more in the drama world, or?
Yeah, up to this point, I mean, this was my first documentary, short or feature, and before this, I had done two drama films funded by NI Screen. I was based up in Belfast for a while, and there was a writer-director on. Then Matthew and I made Dive together, and that was, we released that during the referendum. It's very thematic in terms of what was going on at that time, and that was also a drama that I was writer-director on. So I think, but I had a bit of an itch to scratch with documentary. I love watching. Some of my favorite films of all time are documentaries. And in the back of my mind, it was something that I knew I wanted to do. And then, when Matthew approached me with this, it was a no-brainer. And now going forward, I'm definitely now really, really itching to do another scripted drama film. But I think, the beauty of documentaries is like, with this, you just kind of pick up the cameras and go. If something's happening, and in this, it was a nice reminder of just, how far you can get without a whole lot of resources. I think you can kind of paralyze yourself sometimes with filmmaking, thinking you need, the best cameraman, the best, crew, and all these stuff, and you really, really don't. If the subject matter is there, you can make something that you're really proud of. So going forward, Matthew and I have a few documentaries in the mix at the minute, all, with the intention to create more change, and raise awareness of certain issues.
And actually, I just want to go back to just a tiny bit there when you touched on the differences between them. What do you feel are the kind of skills required for doing or that you've honed to do drama versus do documentary, or what kind of what different actions do you take putting on your documentary hat as opposed to your drama hat?
Well, the funny thing is with the not to jump in and answer for you, but like with it, what I feel is like, because I've done drama, I produce drama, and I produce plays, I produce musicals. I love going on. It's very much feeling for me. But after Dive, whenever we became a part of the movement with the referendum, because it was about a girl having to leave the country to have a termination, and then with doing this with Street Leagues, and then two projects that I've got coming up, that we've both got coming up, I think it's, for me, it's like, it is being able to make that change, and it's being a part of something. I always sort of like to be a part in history. Do you know what I mean? And like, hopefully that, you played your part and you maybe raised a bit of awareness. And then for me, that point that it's worth it, whenever I done pure fiction before, I loved it. I love producing, and I love producing fiction, and I love working with writer-directors that do, but it definitely doesn't give me the same fulfillment. I know that you love fiction and you want to go back to it 100%, and that's obviously from a writer-director point of view, but as a producer, I do like being part of something that can kind of make a difference,
Yeah. Well, I think, the two big things, or the one big thing that both Dive and Street Leagues have in common is, it's an attempt to create empathy with somebody in a situation that most people have serious kind of preconceived notions about. You know what I mean? And I think, especially with homelessness, like the reactions that we get, people are very caught off guard by how impressed and taken away and taken aback they are by these players. And how fun they are, and how much they just love getting to know them in this documentary. And even with Dive, like, one of the best reactions that I heard to Dive was a family friend back in America who was very, very conservative, very, very right-wing, very, very anti-abortion under any circumstances. He watched the film and then said, I never realized there was a human being at the center of that decision, and it completely changed his view on that topic. And that was really rewarding to hear, to be honest. And I think, that's something that I've kind of realized I'm drawn to without it being totally conscious, and I think that's certainly playing a part in the type of projects that Matthew and I are trying to build now.
And actually, one of the things that attending physical screenings can do, rather than if you release a film and it just goes out there and it has a life, and maybe someone might email you and go, that was incredible, that changed me, or like maybe people have been moved but just don't say anything and just kind of go about their day and go, oh yeah, that was a nice film, I'll think about that more. But one of the things, sitting in a physical screening and watching people watch your film, so you guys got to do that. So you guys got to do that before everything kind of locked down, which was great.
Barely, but yeah.
I'm so grateful that we were one of the last movies to screen in the world. To be honest, we screened at the end of February, and I don't think another film festival ran after Dublin. I think they all moved online by the end of March. But yeah, sitting in the cinema and we laugh about the coronavirus thing. Not laugh about it. It's shocking, but I'm surprised that we don't have it, or not every 400 people either shook our hands or hugged us. Do you know what I mean? In the cinema that day, at the end of February. But it was overwhelming for me, that one, because I'm not really a crier. Do you know what I mean? I don't watch movies and sit and cry, but I get really welled up with Street Leagues every time, and it's because I was probably there, and because I know how raw the girls. Well, one moment with a girl, and I always end up really welling up, but everybody was welling up at the same time. Do you know what I mean? If I'm getting emotionally moved by it, I'm sure that the majority of the room are, and a lot of people then coming up to you and hugging you after, and you're trying to sort of and the play. We were both of us. Daniel will talk about this part as well, but I was so overwhelmed by the players coming up. They were so happy. This was the first time they'd seen it, and they were I was delighted that they were so happy. I was because you're always nervous about that. Sean had given the sign off, of course, and said, look, everybody will be delighted with this. But that was overwhelming, that part.
Yeah. Getting to experience the film with the players is one of the best experiences of my life, not just as a filmmaker, but just, period. And I think, like Matthew said, there's a little bit of trepidation for certain scenes, because they hadn't seen anything at that point, and even when they didn't perform the way they wanted to in the games, they were quite crushed in the midst of the tournament, but you still got to show those moments, and they were kind of slagging me about one of those scenes. Why'd you left that in? You left that in?
There was parts where they're turn the camera off. I don't want the camera here.
Yeah.
And you get that as well, but that is a part of it. But it was really nice to hear them all laughing. We're all in the cinema together. There's 400 of us, and they were laughing and slagging each other throughout it, which everybody could hear, which brought everybody into it, because
it made it this crazy immersive experience, because people throughout the entire cinema could kind of hear their commentary on it. And it was incredible.
And it was good. And then for the emotional moments, it was a pin drop.
Exactly.
Dead silence, with that amount of people in the room. And then we done a Q&A after it, and it was, do you want to know what? Some of them were shouting things up, and they they sent a lot of love to Daniel, so that was good.
And that's it. And so around the country, people will be able to have a socially distanced version of that experience, hopefully, from September the 25th. So that's great. So that's Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, cinemas on the 25th. And then we'll be seeing it hopefully in October in Dublin.
Yeah, that's right.
When we kind of emerge from this with our kind of squinty eyes, going out into the sunlight and then back into a dark cinema to see it then. So we definitely look forward to catching that on the big screen as well, because it's beautiful and it's a beautiful documentary. And I think as well in Dublin, a lot of to watch it with people that are in it and that are maybe friends, if you're sitting down in the cinema, you're definitely going to go see it if your friend is in it. So it's kind of nice that it's the communities that are affected by it and that are kind of healed within these beautiful moments on screen. It's definitely worthwhile to watch. So we look forward to catching it, and make sure to do it if you can. And then hopefully we'll hear from you again if you, or when you guys get your VOD.
100%.
Yeah, so that's definitely the next step, and we've been blessed with some really lovely reviews as well, and we've got a lot of press out of it and a lot of content. So we're going into that strong. We're going into that the next round of this. I feel really in a good position.
Excellent, and thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you so much for having us.